Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 15th of April, comes to you from London. And this chart here is a chart of European natural gas, the main contract, TTF Dutch gas front month, which I analyze for clients every morning, calling it for the day ahead. And interestingly, you won't hear any news about this. All you hear is bad news. That's the way the news tends to work. So you won't hear mainstream news about the fact that, in fact, gas prices are back to the very first day of the Middle East crisis. European gas prices have fallen back to that level. And so that's really significant. And these downside targets that were given, this one given at nearly 55 euros back on the 24th of March to 41.32. We're sitting at, we have been as low as 41.92 today. So, that target is nearly met, and there's an even bigger downside target back to where we started at the beginning of the crisis. But it's always important to look at multiple timeframes. You'll know this from my work. And interestingly here, if we just run the tool through the price action, you can see that what was resistance might well start to turn into support at around this 40 euro level. So previously, that 40 level was a resistance level. That's where the sellers emerged. Now that will possibly turn into a support level. If you watch the resources on the Updata website, look in the LSEG Masterclass and look for the section on support and resistance. It's really, really critical to understand. And so that's the position in that we are making now levels that were seen on the first day of the crisis, and that's really significant. Also for crude oil, this is the daily chart. Now we do have this very big upside target. The point here is if the Middle East crisis escalates, then we break to a new high and then we start to look to that target. But for the moment, it's just sitting there, and we've now got a downside target. We are still above the cloud. A little bit of a head and shoulders pattern showing through there on the daily chart for crude oil. So really significant that the height of the shoulder is around $20, and so that would mean to 100, so back to 80 potentially, and that would be taking us back to what was a resistance level as well. The shorter term charts, we're seeing this range of 110, 90, that's the range at the moment, and there's an even smaller range really sitting at around 94, 104. So there's a $10 range that we're watching and waiting to see if we activate that downside target. And of course, more and more people are using these targets on Bloomberg. Here is the TTF contract on Bloomberg. Again, the same targets given going back through February. This is a 60-minute chart on Bloomberg, and this is the 1-minute chart on Brent crude. And so today we're just watching these 1-minute targets, and so we see that Brent crude is just creeping higher. But interestingly, we're playing with the cloud. We were neutral today for our call on crude oil that went out to clients. So the interesting thing is that the energy mix is settling down, and we are seeing markets actually looking quite strong as a result. So first of all, the dollar index, we talked about this yesterday. It has broken down on that 60-minute chart. The new level is 97.97, let's say 98 on the dollar index. We had a target to 97.22 given back at 99.30, and we are still bearish below the cloud short term. Medium term, we are testing the cloud, and the long-term chart, we're waiting to see which way we break. This will be, we've got a downside target that's active, and we're below the cloud. And any of you who watch my masterclasses on LSEG will know that my call for 2026 was a weak dollar. Now, the Japanese yen, we are sitting pretty steady there. Sterling, looking pretty interesting. We're waiting to see which way we break. We've got a big upside target potentially on the 60-minute chart, but of course we are seeing numbers for the UK economy. IMF just downgraded the UK economy significantly. And the interesting thing is that maybe that means interest rates are not going to rise in the UK because the economy is too weak. So this is the thing that everyone's trying to work out. If we look at the bond yields, we see the UK 10-year gilt yield is falling back today on the chart. We have got still these upside targets, so that's really significant there as well. And Japan is still something that is a concern. So the indebtedness of these countries are really quite key, and even the US, which has got something like $8 trillion of debt renewing that was taken out 5 years ago. So this is still hanging over us, although it's not coming to the fore right now. Now, looking at stock indices, you'd struggle to believe it, but the S&P is a smidgen away from making a new all-time high. We've seen a really strong resurgence. So you can't ignore the chart. We're back above the cloud there. On the 60-minute chart, you can see we've just climbed the hill, meeting the targets. And if we look at the weekly chart, we're close to activating a very big upside target. So the broad market in the US is looking pretty bullish. Looking at the NASDAQ, there was a downside target on the daily chart. That has been negated, taken off the chart, because the selling thrust that produced that target we've now gone to a level that's higher than that. So we're back above the cloud. We are still not yet making a new all-time high, but it's really interesting, this uncertainty now in this trading range, and we start to look to this target again. So really quite interesting on the 60-minute chart. No targets clear here. We had downside targets and upside targets, but now we need a sell-off to generate a new upside target. But the interesting thing is the markets are really taking this very much in a stride. When we look at the UK market, this is the FTSE future, and we can see here that we've activated a little upside target, and if we make a new high, we activate an even bigger one, some 7% higher. So the picture is changing, and the medium-term chart has held above the cloud on the lagging line all the time. So really significant. Looking at the tech majors in the US, that is really interesting in terms of we're seeing here the major stocks. Amazon up 3.8% yesterday, really quite significant. Going back to the medium-term chart, we're bullish above the cloud, not quite making a new high here. Apple, we're down slightly. They're not making a new high, so that is quite significant there. Bucking the trend a little bit there. Still have a downside target on Google, but we're moving back above the cloud. And if we look at the long-term chart for Google, that upside target is starting to look in train again. Microsoft, that has been really badly hit in the last several months, and we are still below the cloud there. We found the floor. There were buyers at this level in March last year. Guess what? Same level. That's where people are buying Microsoft, but we are in a downtrend on the medium term, so it is a bit risky. And we have moved into a short-term uptrend, but no clear targets there. And then if we look at NVIDIA, this one really interesting. Upside targets generated on the 60-minute chart to 200 and 203.70. That would be a move above the February high. When we look at the daily chart, we still have a downside target. We had two. One's been removed. We are back above the cloud. We're nudging the top of this range, but the previous all-time high was back in October. We have got results coming out in the next couple of weeks, so it'll be interesting to see whether we can break to new highs. But really interesting how much stocks are taking this in their stride. Looking at Tesla, we can see here we've got a little bit of a mixed picture there, but on the daily chart, we are still bearish below the cloud. So that's quite key. The long-term picture is still pretty good, but the key thing is a lot of these trends are bearish, and you do have to watch that. Last of all, gold did activate upside targets yesterday on the 60-minute chart, and on the daily chart, those targets have held, so precious metals coming back into favor. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Bye for now.